April 3rd, 2005 marked the release date of the expansion pack for Doom 3. On PC it also included Ultimate Doom, Doom 2, and those master levels I'm never touching in the package, but its main selling point was the Resurrection of Evil, a story and level pack for Doom 3 that, like Doom 64, was not developed by ID Software at all. It was instead handed off to Nerve Software, the developers of the Wolfenstein reboot that had come out not too long before it called Return to Castle Wolfenstein. So I suppose it made sense if you were gonna hand it off to any team, give it to the guys who already had a good idea of how these games were supposed to work. Unfortunately, a little look at what else they went on to be involved with wasn't encouraging for me heading into the expansion. They had only made 3 games of their own, and everything else was just assisted development, and by the number of Call of Duty titles I could see, it became obvious what happened to this team over the years. The few times they broke free of the COD mines, it was to help Gearbox make Alien Colonial Marines. And then they helped them again with Battleborn. 2 infamous Gearbox failures that could have easily doomed, get it, the company if it wasn't for the legwork Borderlands did for them at the time. So yeah, as someone who thought Doom 3 was interesting in a bubble, but wore thin a little even when I paced myself, I can't say I was particularly excited to try this ride out, but I've got a story to recap first before we dive into this. Not that there's much of a story to care about, but stick with me here. The original Doom timeline had been put to one side in favour of a new one and a new lead. No longer an angry dude out for revenge for his bunny, we were infinitely more charismatic, yet conveniently silent, a Doom Marine. We were on a moon base, a blatantly evil mad scientist called Dr. Dr. Petruga opened up the gate to hell for the sake of power, I guess. We chased him everywhere with him mocking us all the way like it was a Tom and Jerry cartoon, only with way more blood and death. Went to hell, got the 510 experience, sealed off hell, got picked up by our buddies, maybe went insane, hard to tell, and then learned that the doctor we spent all game chasing wasn't even someone you could fight because they were setting it up for the future. I assumed sequel bait in my previous video, but no, it was to instead set up a DLC that was going to wrap up the actual story. If you're curious just how significant and unique our main character actually was in Doom 3, then I'll give you your answer in one sentence. He isn't in the DLC. We play as a new random this time, around reinvestigating the Mars base around 2 years after the events of the main game under orders of Dr. McNeil. Which, for anyone who cares, she is the one who whistle-blew that Dr. Eggman was up to something in the first place. That's it. That's all the context you really need, so let's dive back into the action one more time with Resurrection of Evil. Oh, one more thing. Like the main adventure, Doom 3's expansion are kinda absent of music, and I really didn't fancy editing with just sound effects again, so maybe, just maybe, I filled in all the silence with the 2003 Futurama game soundtrack instead. Hope you don't mind.
Move slowly. Do you hear that sound? What the hell is that? Look at that.
Reaches out for what is ours.
Red team, what's going on down there?
Although a lot of what's supposed to be new is in front of you, it's actually a pretty familiar setup. The artifact that just let hell back in behind you doesn't do anything right this second, but will eventually, so it's just the pistol and nearby shotgun, and off to kill Lost Souls as our first enemies instead of the usual characters. Oh, my mistake, these are actually not Lost Souls. They're a new variant, which as far as I could tell were just redesigns to look more like their original counterparts of the 90s. But it makes sense, honestly. By the time the Lost Souls were introduced in the main game, you already had most of your arsenal, so they were a joke of an enemy. Here, they at least get to be somewhat of an annoyance while you get your groove back. I do appreciate that after the intro, you're straight into it again though. I understand wanting to establish and build upon the new lore and everything, but it did it for just a tad too long in the main game for what I'd have liked out of Doom. Here you start, turn around, and there's trouble afoot. Good. A little later, we're introduced to the grabber gun, which, to be blunt, is the gravity gun's smaller and inferior cousin. I shouldn't be too harsh on it really, but it is extremely apparent that once again, Half-Life 2 had come out a little after Doom 3 and completely stole its fire, So now this DLC is taking a concept from Half-Life 2 and trying to put its own spin on it. I appreciate that the grabber can pick up organic life though. The grav gun in Half-Life couldn't because, science fiction, but the grav gun could hold things forever and didn't mess with your screen every time you used it, so I think it's a fair trade-off really. Like any mid-2000s DLC, we spend most of our time first going backwards through areas of the main game. At least here it makes sense since we're basically starting at the gate of hell. You can find a guy hiding in a locker and get reintroduced to the PDA if you want, as there are more codes for you to find to unlock weapon caches later on, which is always nice even if it doesn't quite hit the same as the secret walls or whatever. We encounter another supposed new enemy here and... oh. This guy is just another variant of the Imps. Remember my gripe with too many enemies serving the same purpose in the main game? Well, RoE, which I'll be referring to this expansion as moving forward, unfortunately only adds to the problem instead of trying to correct it. But, even if the enemies aren't too keen on mixing it up, the first boss found here does, and although still simple, it is a nice change of pace. The Helltime Hunter warps around and can't be harmed by your weapons normally. Instead, you use the grabber to catch energy balls and throw them back at it till it dies. Like I said, nothing too fancy, but it's welcome nonetheless, even if it did die by warping right into my face while I was holding one of these energy balls, effectively ending itself for me.
Worthless human. This fight has only just begun.
Marine. Hello, Marine? Come in, Marine. Signal strength is back to broadcast level. Listen carefully. This isn't the first time we're facing this, but I need more information. The artifact you recovered is obviously capable of incredible power. It may also be the source of this invasion. Do whatever it takes to get the artifact to me. I'll try to contact the others. Out.
At this precise moment, the game's difficulty takes a rather devastating blow that, to jump the gun a little, never truly recovers from. For killing a boss, you gain a new power for the artifact we started the game with. You charge the artifact by just being near dead bodies with it out, and you can stack these charges for multiple uses. The first power allows you to just slow down time to a crawl so you can dodge every attack with ease and line up all of your shots with no risk involved. It's honestly kind of wild that this was the first power up for the thing. The only balance to it is that it makes this really ugly effect on the screen that can be a little disorientating. It isn't a deal breaker if you want to use it, but it is an odd choice. Yet because of this, outside of mandatory uses for puzzles or the odd time I just really didn't want to deal with some rooms later on, I avoided using the artifact to at least feel something. Sometimes to my own fault, as I'd forget I had it when I actually got to these rare puzzles. Anyway, what's our actual objective here? It's to aid McNeil's research so she can examine the demented heart thing we're now carrying. First, it's to the artifact storage facility to pick up a glorified file on demonic things. Keep in mind by the time you're told this, you're in the third area of Erebus already. Remember Delta Labs from the main game that had 5 zones to it? Well, Erebus has 6. There's only 4 distinct areas in RoE, and all of them bar the last one have significantly more zones within them than the batting average of the main game. Later in the third area, you have to find 2 power cores and bring them back to an office to vent out the artifact storage. Along the way, you're also tasked with finding a yellow keycard just so you know it's still a Doom game, we really promise it is. And is that my boy, the super shotgun? It is indeed, and even more so than the original Doom, a complete replacement for the standard shotgun. Doom 3's shotgun has an idiotically wide spread range, making its death dealing, even at point blank, terrible. The super shotgun here corrects that with a much tighter spread. It's still 2 shots per pull of the trigger, and the reload is still nowhere near as iconic as the original, but it became my default again, just like the good old days, so I have to give credit to Nerve Software for ensuring this old friend still did what it was always intended to be, the showstopper. Anyway, we get our file and peace out of there toot sweet, ending the first half of Erebus. While we're here though, Doom 3, despite never really getting it, tried desperately to be a horror game, so it's honestly kind of surprising that the DLC abandoned this so quickly afterwards in favour of trying to make it more action-packed while still following the rules of the game. The main game might be better off not letting you get as much ammo or making you put the gun down to use the flashlight, but RoE thrives off the extra ammo and better flashlight. In fact, your ammo cap for some weapons is higher here too, so I've really never felt low on ammo, even ignoring how good the super shotgun is in this game. The closest to horror we get here is inherent from the engine and aesthetic. That and the constantly flickering lights that were a horror to my eyes after a while. Honestly, I feel if you have any trouble with flashing lights at all, then this expansion is just unplayable. I know it was made way before the time of development teams caring for accessibility, but how did no one bring up how straining on the eyes some of the rooms in this game can get? It makes me use the flashlight in some areas just so that there was a constant light I could focus my eyes on instead of the flashbangs to the skull the game was dishing out. But back to the mission at hand. We just had to get 2 power cells back to a room to open a way forward, and in this area, we're asked to get 2 power cells back to a room to open the way forward. Starting off strong for Zone 4, huh? It's okay, could be worse. We don't have imps randomly jumping us for near unavoidable damage anymore, just like we did in the base game, right? Are you fucking kidding me? How did this make the cut a second time? It was annoying the first time around, but what's the excuse for not learning from it this time around? Did Nerve not look into enough of the feedback of the original release? Or did they just think it was cool so kept it? Either way, it still sucks here. Oh shit, the new imp and old imp are fighting. I wonder who will win. Okay, I'm bored, they're taking way too long. Later on you find a power cell used to instead power a different lift so you can move ahead through the area. I assumed this was going to be the part of a puzzle where you'd need to find an alternative route ahead so you could bring the power cell with you for that main lift to leave the area, but that turned out to be just having too high of an expectation for RoE, as you don't come back at all, and a little later both cells are just given to you at once before the game then builds a straight path back to the main lift to end the area. The guy who gave us this objective is dead, but I'm not sure if it's the demons that got him or the stupidity of the level that did.
Here, amazing. Everything is right here. The invasion, the demons, it's all exactly the same as the ancient writings.
Dr. McNeil, our assumptions were correct. The artifact is a weapon of unbelievable power.
That explains Betruger's obsession with the ancient civilization.
Yes, but it looks like there's more to all of this than we had thought.
I will save you some of the hassle. That cutscene is rather long, and I was originally going to keep it all in, then I realized actually in the recording it's a lot of just them talking about how amazing everything is, so I decided to skip to just keep the most important sentence that they discovered stuff so I could explain. The boss that powered our artifact earlier has now been fully explained to us. The bosses are directly linked to the artifact, so killing them, resulting in it getting more powerful, now makes sense, instead of it just being video game, even though, let's be real, it still kinda is. Either way, we're off to the armory first to pick up the chain gun. Along the way, I admittedly started getting bored, so swapped to the grabber for a while to try and feel it out. I promise I did everything in my power to not just compare it to the gravity gun when I used it, but man is this thing just not satisfying to use. Being able to pick up random objects and beat enemies to death with it should be such a simple idea to make fun, but no, it warps the screen so you can't see much, objects just get dropped if you hold them for too long, there's little initial force from them, so when you throw it barely hurts enemies if you're too close to them. It's just not fun, and it's wild it's like this when it honestly just made the comparisons the game got at the time Half-Life 2 even more in that game's favour. They tried to make this a competition, but the war was already won by this point and it felt unnecessary. I know the grabber was a scrapped weapon from the original Doom 3, but they had to have known what they were risking by putting it back in, and it just served to make them look worse by comparison. For getting the chain gun, we're rewarded with a sewer level. Oh, Nerve, you're spoiling me here. Monkeyby and demon babies are here too? Oh, even better. I don't even have a bit for this. The game's gotta be self-aware at this point, right? After about an hour of my life I'm not getting back, we make it to the final sector of Erebus and our second boss. We have a ways to go before the fight begins, including an outdoor section, meaning we have to watch our oxygen again, and our cacodemons come back. I appreciate that due to this being a shorter experience, you get more of the enemy variety sooner, so it does feel like a new face is against you every 5 to 10 minutes, even with my gripes with them. I mean, the Bone Bros come back in the same level too, with a bunch showing up soon after while being escorted by this robotic good boy. When we do find our boss, it's the Berserk Hunter this time, with more of an out-and-out battle to the death instead of any real gimmick. It has an exposed heart for you to shoot, but it'll be darting around at quite a pace, making it difficult to hit. Considering that killing it upgrades the artifact and there's bodies laying around, it's clear they want you to manipulate time again to put this guy down. Every now and then he'll cover his heart and slow down to shoot projectiles, so just swap to your explosives and it'll go down in no time. With our second power-up, we can now not only slow down time, but also trigger a Berserk power-up whenever we want, so go on a punching spree, which as stated in the last video, Berserk got buffed significantly in this game, essentially making it a one-touch kill to everything now. With time slowing down as well, we could just zip in and punch everything, then leave without a scratch on us. And there's still another power-up for this thing to go. Why? Regardless, we hop on the monorail and finally leave Erebus.
Hello, Marine? If you're hearing this, listen to me. You must get the artifact to Delta Labs by using the Phobos experimental teleporter near your position. I have the information from Dr. Cloud, and the only way to end this is to bring that teleporter online and transfer to Delta. The artifact can be destroyed by taking it over to...
This is the DLC's Delta Labs in the sense that you start off looking for a teleporter to move you forward, except this time it breaks, freeing a Hell Knight in the process that'll make for a big and scary mini-boss later on, and not to be one-tapped by the artifact, I'm sure. A lot of the lab is standard procedure by now. With the warp down, we need to find a different route involving a key. We get the key after blasting for a number of revenants and returning pinkies that are one-shot by the super shotgun, assuming you aren't spamming the artifact to just punch it to death. We get our key, one-tap the Hell Knight mini-boss, and carry on our way. Ooh, bad luck, dude. Sector 2 actually shows restraints for a couple minutes in a welcomed moment of atmosphere. With no enemies but a lot of leftover carnage, it actually gets to build up some tension that's then released with the reveal of a new enemy. Well, new in quotations. This is the Bruiser. It's essentially a thinner Mancubus, but can move while shooting and does way more damage. It's one of the biggest threats a normal enemy can be due to its damage alone, honestly. Even if it works the same as another enemy, it doesn't suddenly mean it's a freebie unless you're using the artifact. Since this game doesn't have a Baron of Hell, I dubbed this guy the Doom Free Baron. On the game's hardest difficulty, they can do 80 damage in a single shot. They can literally 2-tap you at any point. That's what I mean by a threat, it's wild. I honestly wish there were more like this. It'll sound evil, but pair this thing with an Archvile and it'd be the most intense fight in the game.
God, it's good to see you. There's so much I need to explain, but we don't have much time. The artifact is a gateway from hell. Much like the one that Betruger opened with the teleporters in the Delta Labs. With the artifact, though, as long as it resides in our dimension, there's always the danger of it being awakened, and then another invasion. The ancients knew it, and now we know it. It must be returned to the source of its evil in order to be destroyed. They couldn't do it, so they locked it away and fought to their death. You can use the Delta teleporter to return the artifact to hell for good. I know this sounds crazy, but it's the only way.
I appreciate that the Doctor here is more of a consistent character in this story than just about anyone from the main game. I know Dr. Swan and Dr. Betruger were present throughout the whole main story, but considering I mistook Swan for Betruger at one point in my previous review, I think that explains how much staying power they actually had in my mind. Dr. McNeil, on the other hand, feels more realised to what the game is trying to do. She's still mostly just the objective giver, but there's just a little bit more this time to help make her stick in. Heck, doing what she says led me to a plasma rifle, so even if she wasn't interesting, I'd still give her a pass. Eventually, we bump into our third and final power-up giving boss fight. The Helltime Hunter gave us the ability to slow down time, the Berserk Hunter gave us Berserk, and now with our overpowered artifact in tow, we have the Invulnerability Hunter. Gee, I wonder what that gives us. How does it get even more broken? When you damage the boss either with guns or throwing its projectiles back at it with the grabber, it'll recharge itself with cylinders around the map, allowing you to break them. Once all are broken, use the artifact, punch it to death, and enjoy the fact you now literally have God mode at your fingertips. Reminder, we can now slow down time, do near infinite damage with our fists, and are now completely invulnerable during the time it's used, and you get 3 charges of this to carry at any given time, and fuel for it is literally everywhere. Sounds kind of fucked up now that I think about it, that I'm calling dead bodies fuel. Damn, maybe I'm the monster after all. In Sector 3, and after another lengthy tram ride, the game offers 2 of the body fuel I was talking about before a room of basic enemies to hammer in my point. Look, if the intention was to lean into the power fantasy, I think they missed something that makes the fantasy work here, at least for me. Making the player overpowered with absolutely nothing to challenge it at the click of a button is fun for about 5 seconds and then it wears off. Being super strong and then overpowering something also super strong that one slip up could have spelt your end, that never gets old. What I'm saying is the artifact is too good to allow any challenge to get the blood pumping. yet not using it at all leads to its own problems at times because the game clearly wants you to use it. In the room I just mentioned, your options are either end the room in 10 seconds because you punched everything to death, or waste ammo. It's decision making, but all the choices are just negatives without a good trade-off. Picking your poison isn't inherently a bad thing for the record. In the right situation, having to pick which evil you'd rather deal with can add tension and make the battle thereafter feel more personal. The problem here is it's the same two choices almost every time. The same two poisons, and they don't even really poison you, just kind of taste weird and your immune system gets used to it eventually, so it's just bad tasting water after a while. That's what RoE's decision making is, for a matter of fact, an option between two different bad tasting waters. Honestly, part of the reason why I love the cacodemons is because their ability to fly allows them to ignore some of your options. Yeah, you can still use the artifact for the time buff and invulnerability, but at least you still have to use your ammo, so the choices have a clear, less costly path available. Don't spend the charge and just be a good shot. The choice is skill based all of a sudden and way more appropriate for what I feel Doom should be. Anyway, we're here to cut off power and then cut off the life support systems. Anything to hinder the demonic progress while we work on throwing the artifact back to where it came from to seal the gate to hell once again. Needless to say, life support goes off, we can't stay there. So the idea is to turn it off and then teleport out of there to the Delta Labs. Along the way, there's a pretty long corridor with enemies lined up down it, one after the other, so to try and spice it up, I made it a challenge to try and do it all in one artifact one. It took me 3 tries, but it was worth it for the spark of fun it generated for my soul. After cutting off the life support, we race back via a convenient shortcut back to the beginning of the base and warp out of there in the nick of time to enter the Delta Labs. You hit the ground running here, enemies are right in front of you, hell is broken in everywhere. I'm not surprised the game doesn't even know what sector you're in anymore. This was where everything kicked off in the main adventure, and now here we are back again in the thick of it. Heck, even the BFG is here. It's just randomly on the floor with no build up at all, but it's here, and I'm not complaining. Reminder, the BFG isn't the same one as Classic Doom. It will blow up in your hand if you hold the button too long, and it links itself to other enemies as it moves across a room via tendrils, making it a sweet, sweet room clearer. But now you've completed your arsenal, the useless pistol, 2 shotguns, an assault rifle, the chain gun, plasma rifle, grenades, rocket launcher and BFG, and that's ignoring the artifact, grab a gun or the soul cube from the main game. I might harp on about the problems I have with this game, but the arsenal is superb in giving you options on the fly even if the game itself doesn't use this opportunity effectively. Every classic weapon plus a handful of extras isn't something that always happens in reboots. Heck, it almost always never happens, yet here Doom 3 doesn't even make a song and dance about it because of course you should have access to absolutely everything you did in the classics. It should be assumed, not glamorized as a feature you're lucky is there. Interestingly, there's no dialogue or story here at all. It's just a straight gauntlet of enemies from here till the level ends with an Archvile and Hell Knights around every corner, and it honestly feels weird to be done with an area after only 3 paragraphs, but we find the Hell Portal soon after, and we're off to Hell to end the story. Man, this looks familiar. Unlike the main game, you keep your arsenal on the trip, making this marine already better than the original by a long shot. It also means infinite sprint again, which you'll be getting plenty of use out of this time, as hell isn't fucking around. In the main game, it was a fun but short section that gave you everything you couldn't have on Mars. Here, it knows what you're expecting, so ramps it up as much as it can get away with, making what I feel is a harder but even more satisfying hell to experience. The one weird constant of each iteration of hell, one-upping the last, is completely honoured here, after all. It has also kind of reminded me of the penultimate level of Doom 2, where there's a lot of open space for enemies to attack from anywhere, but you were essentially on a linear path all the way through it, fighting everything from every angle on sheer will alone to survive, eventually reaching a giant skull hanging over a teleport with all the ammo you could ever need in front of it. Gee, I wonder what's next.
What did you hope to accomplish by coming here, mortal? You have something that belongs to me, and I want it.
The final fight against the good doctor, now as the Maledict. is what the final boss of the main game should have been. No gimmicks, no tricks, just a battle to the death. Literally the old Doom adage, shoot it till it dies. Since it's airborne and moves around a lot, the artifact actually gets a use that isn't just breaking the game in two. Slowing down time allows you to line up shots with your slower projectile weapons like the BFG and rockets, and because it's flying, you can't just punch it to death either. Glad we got there in the end of balancing it somewhat. Shame it's the very last time we'll be using it that this is even an option. Be careful firing up at it though while dodging its projectiles. Falling off the arena is just an instant kill, and there's a magma pull around the skull on one of the arena too. It's actually a great little boss fight. There's no refills for the artifact, and the boss will survive one hell of a beating, so you can easily use all 3 charges of it and not even be halfway. A far more enjoyable finale than the original experience, and it's nice to stick it to the most irrelevant villain I've ever experienced in a while, whose only unique characteristic was being living DLC bait for a subpar game.
Return what is ours.
Marine? Marine, welcome home.
Wait, that's it? Again? No ending cutscene? No epilogue? Just one sentence from McNeil roll credits? Huh? I mean, at least it didn't bait more to come this time. All in all, Resurrection of Evil is doom-free with all of its problems, but sped up. If anything, some of its problems got worse, but it's over in less than 2 hours and kinda just exists. Ultimately, even with the new weapons and a more action-focused approach. I wouldn't honestly recommend it at all. It's the weakest Doom experience I've had so far by quite a large margin, which I find a shame because the main game is something that, even with faults, I could understand the love some people had for it. I could see the cult following it had garnered was one it had for a reason. RoE doesn't have that for me. I'm sure it has its fans, sure, but it just didn't do anything to spark any love from me, and by the time I found something I enjoyed within it, I was literally in hell anyway. But I digress. There's another chapter to this story we got about 7 years later via the BFG edition. The last 8 levels of Doom 3, developed by ID again, especially for the BFG edition. A bunch of essentially cut content was repackaged in some extras for us to play. No artifact to bypass the challenge, the Soul Cube is only on the hardest difficulty, and it's actually there to help balance out some of the challenge that difficulty provides. I don't enjoy this game enough to want to experience that, so I settled down for the final stretch on normal because I didn't even want to do hard at this point. Finally, due to it being originally cut content, some parts of it are clearly designed from the original Doom 3's mentality. Although still quicker as a whole, it carries some of the original game's problems with it. Regardless, let's experience the 2012 finale of Doom 3, The Lost Missions. Instead of being based way after the original story like RoE, Lost Mission takes place only 6 hours after the initial invasion hit, with just some other Marine caught in the chaos, but we're gonna fight to survive, and that's kinda the extent of your intro. Pistol right in front of you, the little teleporting bros storm you immediately. It's an even quicker start than the previous DLC, and I already complimented that for picking up the pace over the base game, so I can only assume it was a constant complaint back at the time to speed things up more and more. In no time flat, you're fighting 3 different enemies with a pistol, machine gun, and shotgun. It feels like a traditional level 1 in a Doom game, just without the secrets or arena-styled maps or original music. Okay, it's sorta kinda like a classic Doom level if you just squint your eyes a bit. It is still quintessential Doom 3, however. An imp jumped me at the door again. Seriously, it's like when my cats realize my bedroom door is open with how aggressively sudden things jump at me trying to play this game. Although Doom 3 and RoE were mostly linear experiences, Lost Mission's opening levels kinda pushed this to a new extreme. There's always only one door forward, you're regularly in one-way or tight corridors. Every weapon and key item is spoon-fed to you in sequence. It's Doom on rails at times, and I came to this conclusion less than 10 minutes in. We eventually land in a since cleared out room of scientists, with one more trying to make contact with us. This is Dr. Myers. Don't worry, you don't need to start remembering even more names. He is significant to this mini-story, but it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of anything. He's just here to give us some directions for now. We meet with him while taking an SSD drive with us that has instructions to turn on a power generator in the next sector. Credit where it's due, in the world's least scary horror game, they actually try a different jump scare other than the imp jumping the door in the second section. They have a room of dead bodies and one of them isn't actually dead. Ooh! It's in the room with the super shotgun, which with a little 731 on the number pad, can be all yours. The storage lockers in general take a back seat in this, by the way. They're still there, but as far as I could tell, there's only about 7 of them across the whole expansion, 8 if you count the super shotgun. The SSD drive we picked up is inserted, we grab our grabber gun again, and after a quick reminder of how it works, redistribute the power to help out Dr. Myers. Things are never as simple as they seem, so we have to head off to the lower chambers to help finish the transfer to the Exis Labs. Heading down, we find out that our disturbance causer was actually an arch-vial and... Wait a second, is this something that vaguely resembles music playing in my Doom 3 experience? Oh my god, they're learning. It still sucks there's barely anything in this game outside of atmosphere most of the time, but that's fine because Doom 2016 will fix that and then some when I eventually get to it, I promise. Hey, wanna see me dome an archvile with a super shotgun the second it spawns? The opening of the underground straight up is a classic Doom level in ideology. The door out is right in front of you, it's locked by a yellow keycard, go find it. The storage locker nearby gives up the chain gun at least, which you'll want for the spiders later on. It's the usual giant circle with a key on the end, but at least has you hold out a couple times while waiting for doors to open or lifts to move. It helps build the idea this area was already a little abandoned or in need of repairs even before the hell is here thing. The whole section itself is over in 5 minutes at most, to be honest. We shut down the security clearances and continue our journey to the Exis Labs in no time at all. Doom 3 Light would have been the better title for this DLC over the Lost Mission. But that's okay, because the next section has us activating a sentry bot so it can open a door for us, then escorting it through the darkness, covering each other's back all the while. A little odd revenants come back at the same time we have a robo good boy with us for the second expansion in a row, but a point-blank super shotgun will still dispose of them with ease. If you've got the health and armor to take the risk, dive in at them with the super shotgun every single time, as you'll probably win. The fun with my robotic son ended prematurely, however, as Hell Knights spawned in and I answered with explosives. I don't actually know if you can friendly fire your buddies, but I know they can absolutely friendly fire you if you get in their way, so I'm gonna choose to believe that this was my fault. Sorry, dude. The last part of this caught me off guard a little in its challenge. Nothing too overwhelming, of course, but I did only survive by the skin of my teeth. Having 2 archvials spawn, cacodemons, and a bunch of imps can be surprisingly intense when you've only got so much real estate to run around, and all the fences are low enough for the demons to shoot over. Power up that lift and get out of there as soon as you can. Despite being extremely short, the underground, honestly, was fun. Part 1 is a simple get the key, navigate the opposition formula of Doom's past. Part 2 incorporated the new with the old in an actually appreciative way before topping it off with a sort of end boss challenge with the 2 archvials. Sometimes less really is more, and Lost Mission seems to have understood that.
Welcome to the Exis Labs, where the future is now.
This is just the Delta Labs Section 1 painted red and shortened down. An archvile hides just out of range to spawn enemies a couple times. Pinky's comeback, it's a little more gauntlet-like in design this time around, but I'm cool with that. I'd rather constant carnage than breezing through everything anyway. We soon bump into our science bro, and he explains we need to use the teleporters to try and get out of here, but we need to find a plasma box thing to do so first. Speaking of plasma, we find that plasma rifle a little later on and immediately get put to work with it on the Doom 3 Baron, which once again almost kills me, but to be fair, I played a little recklessly anyway. A brief outdoor section later, we find ourselves already in the second half of the Exis Labs. Wait, what? There's only so many ways I can re-explain that Lost Mission is hella short. It just kept surprising me to see levels and load screens come and go so often, so frequently. Like, damn, okay, let's just go, I guess. Keep in mind we're now on level 6 of 8, with each area being 2 levels each. So 2 for Enpro, 2 for Underground, 2 for Exis, and it's a Doom game so you already know the last one by default has to be Hell. But we're 1 level off Hell already, and I've been playing for 40 minutes at this point. yet I'm getting way more out of it because it's challenging and there's no game-breaking weapon you're expected to use because the game is balanced around it, like the Soul Cube from the main game or the artifact from RoE. If the whole of Doom 3 was structured like this, I probably wouldn't have been as hard on it as I've been. It feels more arcadey here while still having the slower and grounded feel to everything the game was going for. Anyway, we get what we need, fight another Doom 3 Baron, and start the cycle back round to where we started. Along the way is a cool moment I kinda only noticed after the fact, but wanted to bring mention to it anyway. There's a point where the glass between you and outer space is shattered by a revenant, so the oxygen system kicks in and you actually only have limited time to get up to the emergency shutters. I didn't really notice any of this until I pressed the button and realized my oxygen was almost out. I nearly died just because I wasn't paying attention, but it was a cool section nonetheless. An Archvile shows up in a terrifyingly tiny room. I get got one more time by the dreaded door imp just to send me on my way, and we finally get back to the good doctor.
Excellent. You're back. The inducer is working perfectly, and the teleporter is ready for transport. Here's the situation. There's a teleporter outpost in the other dimension, and it's still operational. It's very powerful, and it has a range that could lead those demons all the way to Earth. I would disable it myself, but it requires 2 people to do it. One person at the outpost to initiate the teleporter, and another person here to transmit a power surge to destroy it. I know it's a lot to ask, but you'll need to go to the other dimension, find the remote outpost, and initiate the startup sequence. You're our only hope of defeating this evil. I've got the teleporter ready to go. All you need to do is go into the chamber and initiate the sequence. I'll handle the rest from here. But before you go, I want to give you my personal account of what happened here. It explains everything. The advanced teleporter, how the madness started, everything. It's over there on the console. Please take it. The world needs to know the truth. And good luck.
Holy shit, they actually made an all-new hell instead of reusing the main game's hell? It's a giant open plane, it gives you the BFG immediately, enemies are coming out of portals in front of you, it's game time! With the usual bonus of infinite sprint, we've got another round of the fun bits of a Doom 3 playthrough. And they went all in. It's 2 levels for starters instead of the usual one and done of the main game and RoE. The arenas are wide and later on have different elevations requiring you to actually use the Y-axis once in a blue moon. Plenty of Hell Knights, plenty of Archviles, believe it or not, another great trip to Hell. Seriously, I live for this when I play Doom. I want Hell to give me everything it has when I step into it and demand more of me than what the rest of the game has, and Doom 3 is free for free in nailing how Hell should be within the confines of its own coding. You rematch the Vagary, I don't know, with a bunch of demon babies, which actually took me 2 attempts because I got cornered, whoops. There's Monkey near a sequence of crushers, the outpost itself is a fucking gothic castle straight out of Quake 1. It dawned on me eventually why this was so fun to me. It straight up turned into an arena shooter. Like literally you have giant symmetrical arenas, you're on one end, Hell's on the other, you dance around the area shooting down each other until one comes out on top, break through to the next and repeat. The 90s shooter franchise has finally started to embrace the 90s again nearly 2 decades after the fact. Oh Jesus, that hurt to say out loud considering this DLC came out in 2012. Hey, is that what I think it is? The river Styx and a boat to take us across? Where's our ferryman though? I need to tip him for his service. On the other side is more gauntlets of course. We did the open areas, so now it's narrow paths and everything shooting at you. From Pinkies to Archviles to Hell Knights to, well, everything in between. It's a long stretch up, but it feeds you more ammo every step of the way. Just keep a hold of any BFG ammo you find, you'll need that soon. At the end of the road is the other teleporter. We cut the transmission from both sides at once, then Hell has no backdoor to sneak in once the main Hell gate is shut in the main story. You handle Hell's side whilst Dr. Myers handles Mars's side. It takes time to activate, so naturally every single thing within Hell comes to hunt you down to stop you cutting them off. There's actually a pretty cool sequence because the Mars base is actually still loaded in the background here. So there's a part where you get warped through during the struggle and with Hell still fighting you, and all they really did was change the backgrounds to make the effect. Everything else is still technically the same here. It's a nice visual trick I wish they used more often. When you eventually get back to Hell, you finally fight the only real boss of the story and the final boss of all things Doom 3, the Guardian of Hell. A grounded beast that can spit fireballs up to rain down on you and charge at you fast enough that I don't actually know if you can avoid it. a standard boss to wrap up the whole adventure that can easily be swept away by the might of 3 fully charged BFG shots.
We've got full power on all systems. I'm sending the search now. Hurry! Get to the center of the teleporter.
Seraph 1 Dark Star lowering to surface. Dark Star confirmed, we have visual moving to pickup.
Nice work, Marine.
You know what? I've made peace with these sudden jump cut endings now. At least we actually see the good doctor say well done this time instead of just hearing it. I genuinely had fun here. In fact, I dare to say that despite only being a little over an hour long, it's the best experience of Doom 3 I could have gotten. It's concise, simple, and just hectic enough to get the blood pumping without ever overstepping how powerful you or the opposition should be. And that's it for everything Doom 3 related. Doom 3 is fun, but has problems. Resurrection of Evil is dull, poorly balanced, and barely worth trying if not for the super shotgun and actually finishing off the main game's antagonist. And Lost Mission is when they remembered what made Doom Doom to begin with, and leaned into it more while still honouring what Doom 3 was trying to do. If it's on sale or just cheap in general, I'd say get it if you're curious, but understand it isn't what you might expect in both a good and bad sense. However, this didn't stick. Things changed for the company a great deal in the years around BFG's launch, with ZeniMax buying ID and John Carmack eventually leaving the company when his desire for a VR Doom game was at the time shot down, and his vision of Doom 4 was, well, very different again, causing a new director, a new direction, and a complete reboot of Doom again just after one game. We'll see how that turned out one day when I cover Doom 2016, but not yet. It was never my intention when I first started covering Doom to cover all of them, and secondly, have it take this long? Considering I originally planned to make Doom 1, 2, and 64 all one video originally and just feel it out from there, clearly things didn't go quite as planned. I don't know exactly what I plan to cover next, but I hope you'll join me for it regardless when we get to it. As always, thank you all so much for watching. Remember to like and subscribe if you haven't already, as it genuinely helps the channel grow. Additionally, my Twitter, Patreon, and PayPal can be found in the description of every single video. But until next time, you all take care now, and enjoy slaying demons in any game you happen to play soon.